Good morning. Today I want to talk to you about a powerful verse that can shape the course of your entire day, and if you let it, your entire life. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." What a promise. Imagine waking up each morning letting this assurance sink deep into your soul. This isn't just a verse to memorize, it's a message from the creator of the universe speaking directly to you. The first truth here is that God has a plan, and not just any plan, he has your plan. This is personal. This is intentional. Before you ever had a thought about your life, God was crafting a plan to bring out the best in you, to make you a solution to the needs of this world, to prosper you, and to give you hope. Now, some mornings you might wake up feeling uncertain, burdened by the challenges around you, perhaps even anxious about the future. That's when you need to claim this promise even more. This isn't blind optimism, it's faith rooted in God's character. He is a loving father, a wise creator, and an intentional planner. And his plans aren't just for any outcome, they are for your success, for your peace, for your purpose. Think about what this means as you step into your day. Every moment, every encounter, every challenge is an opportunity for God's purpose to unfold in you. You might face obstacles, yes, but the promise of Jeremiah 29 is that no difficulty can derail the plans God has established for your life. That means every setback is temporary, every delay is a stepping stone, and every mistake is a lesson that brings you closer to God's ultimate vision for you. But let me ask you this, are you willing to align your heart with that promise? God has a plan for you, but he's not going to force it upon you. You must rise every morning, declare it over your life, and choose to believe it. You must commit to it with your actions, with your thoughts, with the way you speak about yourself, and even the way you speak about your future. So start each day with Jeremiah 29:11 on your heart and in your mind. When challenges come, remember it. When fear whispers in your ear, declare it. And as you walk in that truth, watch how God's plan for your life unfolds. Because I assure you, his plans are not only good, they are greater than anything you could ever imagine. When we talk about God's personal and intentional plan, we're speaking to a truth so profound that it has the power to transform lives. There is a universal hunger to feel seen, understood, and valued. We all wonder at some point why we're here, what we're meant to accomplish, and if there is a design behind the events of our lives. Jeremiah 29:11 speaks directly to this longing, revealing that God has a specific, intentional, and deeply personal plan for each one of us. This is not a plan he created in a moment or as a reaction to the choices we make. It is a plan that God crafted with great care and foresight long before we took our first breath. His purpose is interwoven with our identity, our strengths, our weaknesses, and even our challenges. Imagine the detail and thoughtfulness of this divine blueprint. Just as a skilled artist envisions every brushstroke before it touches the canvas, or as an architect carefully designs each part of a building, so too has God mapped out a plan for each of us with precision and love. Every fiber of our being was intentionally crafted to fulfill a specific purpose that only we can accomplish. This isn't an assembly line design where everyone has a generic role or task to complete. God's plan for us is tailor-made, designed with our unique personalities, experiences, and circumstances in mind. To fully appreciate this, consider that God's plan isn't just a path laid out with start and end points. It's an invitation to walk in partnership with him each day. His purpose for us unfolds moment by moment as we make choices, face challenges, and grow through our experiences. God knows the journey we need to take to develop the character and resilience that will equip us to fulfill our purpose. He's not concerned merely with the destination, but with who we become along the way. This journey is part of his plan, and he uses every step to teach us, shape us, and draw us closer to him. Many people look at their lives and feel discouraged because things aren't going as planned. Perhaps they're not where they thought they would be by now, or maybe they face setbacks and failures that make them question if there's a purpose at all. Yet, even in these moments of uncertainty or disappointment, God's plan remains constant. He isn't surprised or thrown off by our circumstances. Instead, he uses every situation, even our mistakes, to work out his purpose. Romans 8:28 tells us that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. This means that God is actively involved in weaving every aspect of our lives into his perfect design. God's plan is personal in ways we often don't understand. He knows the desires of our hearts, the dreams we haven't spoken aloud, and the fears we carry. He knows our gifts and strengths as well as our weaknesses and limitations. God isn't asking us to be perfect or to have everything figured out. He's asking us to trust that He knows what we need and that He's guiding us step by step toward the life He's envisioned for us. When we grasp this, it frees us from the pressure of trying to control everything. Instead of striving, we can surrender, knowing that God is leading us according to a plan that is far greater and more beautiful than anything we could design for ourselves. A personal and intentional plan also means that God values who we are as individuals. In a world that often tries to conform us to its standards or measure us by comparison, God's plan is refreshingly unique. He doesn't want us to be like anyone else. He wants us to be exactly who He created us to be. He has designed each of us with specific traits and abilities that are meant to shine. Think about that for a moment. God created you with qualities that reflect His nature and His heart. Your creativity, compassion, intellect, humor, resilience, these are not random attributes. They are intentional parts of who you are. They are tools God has given you to fulfill the purpose He set before you. Understanding this gives us a new perspective on life's challenges. Often we think that if we're facing difficulty, it means something has gone wrong, or maybe we've strayed from God's plan. But God's purpose doesn't shield us from hardship. It uses hardship to refine us. Just as gold is purified in fire, our character is strengthened through the trials we encounter. God's personal plan for us includes these refining moments because they make us more capable of carrying out His purpose. He is not interested in making life easy, but in making us effective, resilient, and deeply connected to Him. Each challenge we face is an opportunity to grow, to trust, and to see God's faithfulness in action. Moreover, God's plan is deeply intertwined with timing. Sometimes we feel ready for something, but God holds us back because He knows we're not fully prepared. Other times we feel unqualified, yet God pushes us forward because He knows we have what it takes. This is where trust becomes essential. God's timing often doesn't match ours, but it's always perfect. He sees the bigger picture while we only see what's in front of us. Trusting His timing means letting go of the need to control outcomes and believing that God will bring about His purpose at the right moment. This trust frees us from anxiety and impatience, allowing us to walk in peace, knowing that God is orchestrating every detail for our good. Another profound aspect of God's personal plan is that it's not limited by our past. Many people struggle with guilt, regret, or shame over things they've done or choices they've made. They worry that they've somehow disqualified themselves from God's purpose. But the beauty of God's plan is that it incorporates even our failures. Nothing we have done can derail the purpose God has for us. He is a God of redemption who takes our mistakes and uses them as part of His greater design. In fact, some of the most powerful testimonies come from people who have experienced God's grace and redemption in profound ways. Our past doesn't disqualify us. It equips us to fulfill our purpose with humility, empathy, and a deeper understanding of God's mercy. Living in alignment with God's personal and intentional plan requires us to listen to His voice. In a world full of distractions and competing opinions, it's easy to lose sight of God's direction. That's why it's essential to cultivate a relationship with Him through prayer, scripture, and reflection. When we spend time with God, we become more attuned to His guidance and we begin to see His hand in our lives more clearly. We start to recognize His voice above the noise and we develop a sense of peace and confidence in His leading. This doesn't mean we'll always know every detail of His plan, but it means we'll have the assurance that He is with us, guiding each step. One of the greatest gifts we can experience is the realization that we are not alone in our purpose. God's plan is personal, yes, but it also connects us with others. He brings people into our lives who encourage us, challenge us, and help us grow. Our purpose is often linked to those around us because God's kingdom is built through relationships. We are not called to live in isolation, but to be part of a community that reflects His love and grace. When we recognize that God has placed certain people in our lives for a reason, we gain a new appreciation for the role we play in each other's journeys. Together we accomplish more than we could alone, fulfilling God's plan in ways that have a lasting impact on the world. Ultimately, embracing God's personal and intentional plan is about surrender. It's about letting go of our limited view and trusting that God's perspective is infinitely wiser. It's about recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers because God does. His plan may not always make sense to us in the moment, but it is always good. When we surrender our desires, our fears, and our expectations to Him, we open ourselves to the fullness of His purpose. We begin to live with a sense of freedom, knowing that our lives are in the hands of a loving Father who is working all things for our good. Each day we have the choice to walk in alignment with God's plan. It's a journey of faith, trust, and surrender, but it's also a journey of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. We are not here by accident. God has placed us in this time, in this place, with a purpose that is unique to each of us. And as we embrace his plan, we find that our lives are not only meaningful, but deeply connected to his greater story, a story of love, redemption, and hope that transforms everything it touches. Faith over circumstance is a profound principle rooted in the idea that belief in a higher purpose or divine plan can enable us to overcome any obstacle. It's about looking beyond our immediate surroundings, the tangible limitations we face, and seeing instead the possibilities that lie in the unseen, trusting that what we hope for is already unfolding, even if it's not immediately visible. Faith over circumstance does not deny the existence of problems. It doesn't minimize the pain or ignore the realities of life. Rather, it provides a framework within which to process those challenges and see them through a different lens. Faith becomes the force that shapes our response to circumstances, turning potential defeat into resilience and growth. Our circumstances are often the loudest voices in our lives. They demand our attention, they scream for immediate action, and they press upon us with relentless weight. They bring with them the frustrations of unmet expectations, the stress of uncertain futures, the regrets of past failures, and the anxieties of the unknown. For many, these voices become consuming, taking up every inch of mental and emotional space, leaving little room for hope. In this space, faith is not a natural response. It's a choice to see what isn't immediately apparent, a choice to trust in something bigger than the problem at hand, and a choice to act in ways that align with what we believe rather than what we see. Faith over circumstance is about aligning with a perspective that lifts us above the immediate challenges and reframes them within a larger context of growth, purpose, and possibility. The power of faith in these moments lies in its ability to anchor us to something unshakable. Circumstances fluctuate, they shift with the changing tides of life, often beyond our control. Faith, however, is a constant. It is a deep-rooted belief that there is meaning even in the midst of chaos, that every challenge carries within it a seed of purpose, and that the path we are on, though sometimes steep and winding, is leading us to a destination filled with potential and promise. When faced with difficult circumstances, there is a natural tendency to focus on the problem, to dissect it, to analyze every angle, and to attempt to predict every possible outcome. The energy invested in this analysis can easily lead to discouragement, as we find ourselves staring at a mountain that appears insurmountable. Faith, however, shifts our focus. Instead of being fixated on the size of the mountain, faith allows us to see the strength within us to climb it, or to believe that there's another way over it, even if we don't yet see it. Faith does not negate the mountain, it does not magically make it disappear. Rather, it infuses us with the courage to keep going, the confidence to take one more step, and the assurance that with each step we are moving closer to the summit. In this way, faith over circumstance becomes a daily practice, a conscious decision to place our trust in something greater than what we feel, see, or experience in the moment. It's a perspective shift that takes place within, empowering us to stand firm even when everything around us seems uncertain. This internal posture of faith is what enables us to weather storms that would otherwise overwhelm us, to face fears that would otherwise paralyze us, and to pursue dreams that might otherwise seem impossible. Faith, in essence, becomes the lens through which we view every circumstance, transforming the way we respond to life's most challenging situations. There are times when circumstances are not only challenging, but seem to directly contradict the very things we hope and believe for. In these moments, faith demands a level of surrender, a willingness to trust in outcomes we cannot see, and a reliance on a strength beyond our own. This surrender is not about giving up, rather, it's about giving over, releasing the need to control every detail, and instead allowing our faith to guide our steps. It's a paradoxical strength that is born out of humility, recognizing our own limitations, and at the same time acknowledging that there is a power at work that transcends those limitations. In surrender, faith becomes not only a refuge, but a source of renewed vision, helping us to see beyond the immediate hardship and to recognize the potential for growth, transformation, and resilience within it. Faith over circumstance doesn't remove the emotional weight of challenges, but it does offer us the grace to bear that weight differently. Instead of feeling crushed beneath it, we learn to carry it with a sense of purpose. Each burden, each trial becomes an opportunity to exercise and strengthen our faith, to deepen our reliance on what is true and lasting. This resilience built through faith is what enables us to emerge from trials not weakened but empowered, having developed the capacity for patience, endurance, and hope that we might not have gained otherwise. Faith, in this context, is not merely a belief, it is a transformative process that refines and redefines us in the face of adversity. Moreover, faith over circumstance cultivates within us a vision that goes beyond the immediate, enabling us to focus on the greater purpose behind each event. In times of difficulty, it's easy to become inward focused, consumed with our own struggles and limitations. Faith, however, calls us to look outward and upward, to remember that our lives are part of a much larger tapestry and that our challenges may serve a purpose far beyond what we can see. This perspective expands our understanding, allowing us to see our experiences as part of a journey that is meaningful and connected to a broader mission. Faith then becomes the bridge that connects our immediate circumstances to a deeper sense of purpose, giving us the strength to move forward with hope and expectation. When we walk in faith over circumstance, we develop a resilience that defies logic, a peace that surpasses understanding, and a joy that persists even in the face of sorrow. This kind of faith is not passive, it is active and alive, propelling us forward, lifting us up, and sustaining us in ways that are often surprising. It gives us the courage to dream again after a disappointment, to love again after a heartbreak, and to try again after a failure. Faith renews our strength in ways that go beyond physical endurance, offering us a spiritual and emotional foundation that is solid, steady, and enduring. Faith over circumstance also calls us to be bold in our actions, even when circumstances suggest caution or retreat. It empowers us to take risks, to step out of our comfort zones, and to pursue the things that matter most to us, even if success is not guaranteed. This kind of boldness is not recklessness. It is a courage that comes from knowing that our worth is not tied to outcomes, but to our willingness to walk in alignment with our beliefs. Faith then becomes a source of liberation, freeing us from the fear of failure, the need for approval, and the pressure to conform to external expectations. It allows us to live authentically, guided by an inner compass that is anchored in purpose rather than circumstance. In every circumstance, faith reminds us that we are not alone, that there is a source of strength, wisdom, and love that is accessible to us at all times. This assurance provides a profound sense of peace, enabling us to rest even in the midst of life's storms. It is this peace that guards our hearts and minds, allowing us to face each day with confidence, knowing that whatever comes our way, we have the resources within us to navigate it with grace and resilience. Faith over circumstance is, in essence, a way of living that transforms every experience into an opportunity for growth, for connection, and for a deeper understanding of the purpose woven into our lives. Ultimately, faith over circumstance becomes a journey, a continual process of learning, growing, and trusting. It teaches us to live not by what we see, but by what we believe, to anchor ourselves not in the shifting sands of circumstance, but in the steadfast foundation of purpose and promise. Faith calls us to rise above our immediate surroundings, to reach beyond our limitations, and to live each day with a sense of hope that defies circumstance. A hope that is rooted in the certainty that our lives are filled with meaning and potential. Through faith, we find the strength to face every challenge, the courage to pursue every dream, and the wisdom to embrace every moment as part of the unfolding story of our lives. That aligning our daily actions with God's promise is an approach that transforms not only our individual lives, but also the lives of those around us. The promise in Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future is not only comforting, but also empowering. Yet this promise requires us to do our part. God's plans are unbreakable, but He gives us the freedom to engage actively with them. Aligning our actions means intentionally shaping our day-to-day decisions, habits, and thoughts to reflect the certainty of His promise. The first step toward this alignment is recognizing that our purpose is embedded in every single day, not just in the grand moments, but in the small, often overlooked actions. When we wake up, we have an opportunity to start the day with God's promise on our hearts. We are essentially declaring, God, I trust that your plans for me are good. This mindset's a foundation that allows us to approach every task, no matter how mundane, with a sense of divine intention. Whether it's our work, our relationships, or our personal time, each activity becomes a chance to express trust in the promise that we are being led toward a hopeful future. To align our actions with God's promise, it's essential to cultivate self-awareness. Self-awareness means understanding the motivations, attitudes, and patterns that guide our decisions. In light of God's promise, we start to question the motives behind our actions. Are we acting out of fear or faith? Are we pursuing activities that align with God's vision for us? Or are we allowing external pressures to dictate our direction? When we root our decisions in faith, they carry a new level of significance and intentionality. For example, a person might have a career ambition that seems daunting or even impossible by human standards. But when they align that ambition with the understanding that God's promise is to prosper them and give them a future, they gain the courage to pursue that goal with confidence, knowing that it is not solely their own strength guiding them. The idea of aligning our actions with God's promise also invites us to reflect on our relationships. God's promise is relational in nature. It is not a promise made in isolation, but in connection with the people we are called to influence, serve, and uplift. When we start each day with the belief that we are part of something greater than ourselves, it becomes easier to view our interactions with others as opportunities to demonstrate love, kindness, and support. Relationships become an extension of God's purpose. Whether it's a simple conversation with a friend, an act of kindness toward a stranger, or a collaborative project at work, we can engage in each interaction with the intent to fulfill the greater purpose. Another crucial aspect of aligning our actions with God's promise is embracing patience and resilience. Sometimes when we pursue our goals or dreams, the path may seem slower than we expected, or obstacles might appear out of nowhere. This is where the promise in Jeremiah 29:11 becomes our anchor. God's plan is to give us hope and a future, which implies that it is progressive, it unfolds over time. Our words and thoughts are also part of aligning with God's promise. The thoughts we entertain and the words we speak have a powerful impact on how we live each day. If we allow doubt, fear, or negativity to dominate our minds, we are less likely to take the actions needed to fulfill our purpose. Conversely, when we fill our minds with thoughts that reflect God's promise, we are energized to act with hope and positivity. It reflects God's promise of hope and a future. Aligning our actions with God's promise often requires us to make sacrifices or changes in our lifestyle. There may be habits, relationships, or pursuits that, upon reflection, do not align with God's purpose for us. Embracing God's promise may mean letting go of certain things that distract us or lead us away from His intended path. This could involve reevaluating how we spend our time, the kind of media we consume, or even the people we associate with. Though it might be difficult, such adjustments are not about restriction, but about creating space for what truly matters, for what brings us closer to God's vision. As we shed what no longer serves God's purpose, we make room for growth, for meaningful pursuits, and for relationships that nurture our journey. Trusting in God's promise also encourages us to pursue excellence in everything we do. When we align our actions with the belief that God's plan is to prosper us and give us a future, we are motivated to give our best effort, knowing that our work is part of a larger purpose. Whether in our careers, education, or even our hobbies, pursuing excellence means dedicating our efforts wholeheartedly, not because we need to earn God's love, but because we are responding to His calling. This commitment to excellence is not about perfection. Rather, it's about honoring God by fully using the gifts and opportunities He has placed in our lives. By giving our best, we reflect our trust in God's provision and demonstrate faith that His plan is worth our finest efforts. Practicing gratitude is another way to align our actions with God's promise. Gratitude reminds us of God's goodness and redirects our focus from what we lack to what we have been given. Each day, taking time to thank God for even the smallest blessings cultivates a mindset of abundance. When we recognize that every good thing is part of God's plan, we become more aware of His presence in our lives, which strengthens our trust in His promise. Gratitude shifts our perspective, helping us view challenges as opportunities and blessings as affirmations of God's faithfulness. This outlook motivates us to act with joy, knowing that we are part of a hopeful and prosperous future. Lastly, aligning with God's promise involves a commitment to lifelong growth. God's plan is not static but dynamic, continually inviting us to learn, grow, and deepen our relationship with Him. This requires humility and a willingness to learn from every experience, whether success or failure. Each day is a new opportunity to become more attuned to His voice, to gain wisdom, and to refine our character. Embracing a growth mindset means we never stop seeking ways to become the person God created us to be. By remaining open to change, growth, and guidance, we position ourselves to fulfill the promise of Jeremiah 29:11, step by step, with a sense of purpose and peace that comes from knowing our lives are held within God's perfect plan. Every challenge is a step in the journey. A lesson wrapped in difficulty, a stepping stone disguised as an obstacle. Life rarely hands us unbroken paths or easy roads. It shapes us through trials and tests. Challenges are not interruptions, but the very essence of growth. The greatest journeys in life require resilience. To accomplish anything meaningful, we need persistence and tenacity. Challenges are the chisels that carve out these qualities within us. When we face adversity, we're forced to confront our weaknesses, our fears, and our self-imposed limitations. Instead of seeing challenges as reasons to quit, we can begin to view them as opportunities to uncover these hidden limitations and to transcend them. With each hurdle we cross, we grow in confidence, self-awareness, and capability. Adversity then becomes our teacher, leading us to discover inner resources we may have otherwise overlooked. Every challenge brings with it an invitation to evolve. Sometimes challenges seem overwhelming. They push us to our limits. In those moments, it's easy to question why we're experiencing such difficulties or to doubt if we're capable of overcoming them. However, every challenge exists for a purpose, and often that purpose is to push us beyond our current boundaries. The discomfort we feel in the face of difficulty is often the stretching of our capacity, the expansion of what we are able to withstand and accomplish. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires us to let go of old beliefs, habits, and attitudes that no longer serve us. Challenges act as catalysts for this type of growth. When we face them head on, we step into the process of transformation. Some of the most powerful insights come through adversity. In the quiet struggle of dealing with a setback or disappointment, we're given the gift of self-reflection. When things are going smoothly, we may not take the time to examine our motivations, values, or goals deeply. But when challenges arise, we're often forced to take a closer look. We question why we do what we do. We examine our choices and we reassess our priorities. Sometimes the struggle is there to realign us with our true purpose, to bring us back to the core of what matters. Through hardship, we learn to separate what's essential from what's trivial. We come to appreciate our strengths, and we also recognize areas for improvement. In this way, challenges are mirrors, reflecting back to us both our potential and our need for growth. Adversity also teaches us patience and resilience. When our plans are delayed or when we're met with obstacles we didn't anticipate, we learn the art of waiting, of persevering, even when the way forward is unclear. Patience is not passive, it's an active form of strength. A decision to stay committed to the journey despite the struggles along the way. Patience teaches us to trust in the timing of our lives and to believe that there's a greater purpose unfolding even when we can't see it immediately. With every challenge we endure, our resilience builds. Resilience is the muscle that enables us to withstand future hardships, to bounce back from disappointment, and to move forward with hope. Challenges are also reminders that we are not meant to walk this journey alone. Often we're faced with situations that humble us, that show us the importance of community support and collaboration. These difficult times remind us to lean on others, to ask for help when we need it, and to offer support when others are in need. Through shared struggles, we learn compassion, empathy, and the value of connection. By navigating challenges together, we forge stronger bonds with those around us. We come to appreciate the strength of unity, the comfort of shared burdens, and the joy of collective success. There's a beauty in facing and overcoming adversity. The journey through hardship shapes us, adds depth to our character, and enriches our story. Every time we rise above a challenge, we write a new chapter of resilience, courage, and determination in our lives. And the beautiful part is that while we may feel like we're fighting alone, each victory we achieve inspires others. Our journey through difficulty can be a light for someone else who's facing a similar struggle. Our story of triumph can be the encouragement someone else needs to keep going. In this way, our challenges become more than personal tests. They become part of a collective legacy, a shared human experience that binds us all. With every challenge we conquer, we deepen our trust in ourselves and our purpose. We gain confidence, not from an absence of struggle, but from our ability to overcome it. True confidence is born from facing fears, confronting insecurities, and emerging victorious on the other side. Each time we face a challenge, we add another layer to our self-assurance, another reminder that we are capable of more than we previously believed. This confidence fuels our progress, giving us the courage to dream bigger, to take on greater risks, and to continue moving forward no matter what life throws our way. Challenges force us to grow, but they also deepen our gratitude. When we experience difficulty, we come to appreciate moments of ease, joy, and peace with greater sincerity. The contrast of hardship enhances our sense of gratitude for the blessings we may have once taken for granted. This gratitude, in turn, becomes a source of strength and perspective. When we learn to see each challenge as an opportunity rather than a burden, we shift our mindset from one of frustration to one of gratitude. We start to view life not as something that happens to us, but as something we actively participate in, shaping our destiny through our responses to each challenge. The truth is that challenges will always be a part of life. There will always be unexpected turns, unforeseen difficulties, and moments of doubt. But with every challenge we face, we're given a choice. We can choose to see the difficulty as a defeat, or we can choose to view it as a stepping stone. We can choose to let it discourage us, or we can let it fuel our determination. Each challenge is an invitation to dig deeper, to reach higher, and to become the person we are capable of being. When we embrace this mindset, no challenge is too great, no obstacle is insurmountable. Every hardship is just another step in the journey, bringing us closer to our highest potential and truest purpose. That starting each day with a powerful declaration can set the tone for how we approach our lives, our challenges, and our purpose. When we begin each day by declaring Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future," we are embracing a promise that can redefine our perspective. Declaring a promise isn't just about saying it, it's about choosing to believe it fully. Even when life doesn't look the way we hoped or expected, we might face mornings filled with uncertainty, days where things feel out of control, or moments when we question our direction. Yet declaring Jeremiah 29:11 is an act of faith, a decision to remind ourselves that God's plans are greater than any challenge we might encounter. When we embrace this promise daily, we are choosing to focus on God's unchanging character rather than on our circumstances. There's something incredibly empowering about knowing that God's plans are not affected by our mistakes, our doubts, or even the barriers that might appear in our path. His promise in Jeremiah 29:11 is that his plans are to prosper us, to protect us, to give us hope, and to provide a future. This daily embrace of Jeremiah 29:11 is a commitment to see life through the lens of purpose rather than mere circumstance. It's a decision to start the day with hope, knowing that no matter what unfolds, God is working behind the scenes. He's weaving together every detail, every experience, every person we encounter into a beautiful plan. This doesn't mean every day will be easy or without struggle. In fact, some days will require a deeper reliance on this promise. But when we declare Jeremiah 29:11 each morning, we are reminded that every high and every low is part of a larger journey. Embracing this promise means making it personal, letting it shape our hearts and our minds. It's one thing to hear a promise, it's another to own it, to let it sink deep into our soul and become part of our identity. When we say, "I believe God has a plan for me," we are saying that our lives have meaning beyond what we can see right now. We are saying that we are not just drifting through life, but are part of a divine design, a purpose that gives value to each moment. This daily declaration is also a commitment to keep our hearts open to God's guidance. When we say yes to his promise, we're choosing to align our lives with his direction, even if it doesn't always match our own plans. We might have dreams, ambitions, and desires that don't unfold the way we anticipated, but embracing Jeremiah 29:11 is about yielding to a greater vision, trusting that God's perspective is far higher and wiser than our own. We are releasing control, surrendering our own limited view, and choosing to walk by faith rather than by sight. This kind of surrender takes courage because it means letting go of our own timeline, our own expectations, and learning to trust in the beauty of God's timing. As we declare Jeremiah 29:11 each morning, we are also reinforcing our identity in Christ. We are more than our achievements, more than our challenges, more than our past or our failures. We are children of a God who has a specific plan for each of us, a plan that is rooted in his love and his goodness. This promise becomes a source of identity, a reminder that we belong to a God who values us, who cares about our journey, and who is invested in our growth. When we understand our identity in God, we become stronger, more resilient, and more at peace with who we are and where we are going. Each day we choose to embrace this promise, we are practicing faith and building spiritual resilience. Faith isn't a one-time decision, it's a muscle we strengthen over time. And each morning that we declare Jeremiah 29:11, we are exercising that faith. We are learning to rely not on what we feel or see, but on what we know to be true in God's word. This daily declaration becomes a shield against doubt, a defense against fear, and a source of strength that carries us through both the triumphs and the trials of life. Over time, this practice builds a deeper, unshakable confidence that God's plans for us are good, that he is with us, and that his promises are true. Jeremiah 29:11 also reminds us that God's promise is forward-looking. It's about a future filled with hope. Embracing this promise each day is about keeping our eyes fixed on what lies ahead rather than being held back by what's behind us. We all have past mistakes, disappointments, and regrets, but this promise calls us to let go of the past and move forward. It's an invitation to step into each new day with fresh hope, knowing that God's mercies are new every morning. By declaring this promise daily, we are giving ourselves permission to dream again, to believe again, and to hope again, regardless of what we may have experienced before. In the process of declaring Jeremiah 29:11, we become vessels of God's light and hope in the world. When we walk in this promise, people notice. Our faith, our peace, our confidence become a testimony to others, showing them the power of God's love and his plans for each of us. Our lives become an encouragement, a reminder to others that God is real and his promises are true. When we start our day by declaring his plans over our lives, we're not only transforming our own hearts, we're becoming conduits of his hope, spreading light in places that may need it most. In this way, embracing Jeremiah 29:11 is not just about us, it's about God using us to impact others, to inspire faith, and to share his love with the world around us. So each day, let us choose to declare and embrace this promise, letting it shape our outlook, our faith, and our purpose. Let Jeremiah 29:11 be more than just a verse we read. Let it be a declaration of who we are and who we're becoming. And as we live in the truth of this promise, may we find ourselves growing closer to the God who holds our future and embracing the hope that comes from knowing his plans are always for our good.